Hey friends, back the feminist lawyer here. Looks like I need to explain this one again. So whether or not life begins at conception is really not the issue when it comes to people having abortion rights. Of course, even the Supreme Court themselves said that it cannot be proven that life begins at conception or when life begins, so they refused to comment on it in Roe and Casey. However, that point is irrelevant. Let's say life does begin at conception and the magic sky daddy sends a soul down to the zygote, and that's a person with rights. The point here is that a pregnant person is the only person in America, living or dead, that can be forced to give up the use of their bodily tissues to sustain the life of another. Now, let me explain. Have you ever checked off that little box that says that you agree to be an organ donor when you sign up for your driver's license? The reason you have to check that box is that even after your death, they need consent to take your organs to sustain the life of another. Even after you are dead, you can refuse to give over life-saving tissues to sustain the life of another person. Here's another example, pretty horrible to even think about, but let's say my living child, my 12-year-old daughter, were lying in a hospital bed next to me, and the doctors came to me and said, the only thing that can save your daughter's life is a fingernail clipping from you. You just have to clip your fingernails and give us a clipping of your fingernails and it will save your daughter. I have the legal right to refuse to provide that fingernail clipping, even if the burden is as small as a manicure, because I have rights to bodily autonomy. They cannot force me to give up any of my tissues in order to sustain the life of another. Let's use a man as an example, just to kind of drive the point home. Let's say my husband and my son were in a car accident together, and my son needs a blood transfusion, and my husband is the only match. My husband can refuse to give that blood transfusion. He can stand there and watch my son die because he refuses to give up his blood to save my son. That's his right. That's his bodily autonomy. Now, obviously, these are horrible examples, and you would be an awful person not to give up your tissues to save those people, but that's not the point. The point is, you have a right to refuse even after you're dead. If your blood could save 10 people's lives after you're dead, but you haven't given consent to give your blood or to give your organs, etc., they cannot take them. You have the right to your own tissues. You cannot have them taken from you without permission. So the point here is that pregnant people are the only people, living or dead, I'm talking about corpses too, that can be forced to give up the use of their tissues to sustain the life of another. Personhood is irrelevant. Even if personhood did exist, you still cannot force a person to give up the use of their tissues to sustain the life of another. It's against equal protection, which means people who do not have uteruses have more rights than people who do have uteruses. People who are dead have more rights than people with uteruses. Is it really that hard? Stay safe out there, friends, and keep fighting the good fight.